All right, thank you very much. With that thing, I feel like doing a Madonna dance routine. Vogue. Sorry? Yeah, back in the Matrix. All right. You had to break it to me, isn't it? You're a shadow of dreams. All right. So, good afternoon, everyone. Let's start with doing a recitation of the Hat Sutra. I think that I need to open the file. Together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. The Bhagavan was absorbed in a concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of profound perfection of wisdom, beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then through the power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara. How should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shalvadiputra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom, should look upon like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is not other than form, form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, composition, factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no composition of factors, no consciousness. No eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element and so on up to including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on up to including no aging and death and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration, without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment and reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of the mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering should be known as the truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared, Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Para Samgate Bodhisoha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that, it is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom just as you have indicated, even the Tathagatas rejoice. Then the Bhagavan Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding in their entirety, along with the worlds of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. We'll go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. From the accumulations that I collect by listening to the teachings, may I attain the state of a Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. I'll go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. From the accumulations that I collect by listening to the teachings, may I attain the state of a Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. I'll go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. From the accumulations that I collect by listening to the teachings, may I attain the state of a Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. Right, so we have a new sound system that Malgo has been working on for some time. So we're in the process of installing everything, but I think that it's going to make at least my life easier, because I feel like days like this, I did have to project my voice strongly during the morning session. I was feeling by the end as if I'm kind of screaming. I guess that you still have problems with hearing me. Can you hear me now better? That's cool. So we had a nice morning session with Geshe-la. We didn't cover a lot of ground, but I think that it contained a lot of, I guess, pithy instructions for or advice for dealing with certain situations. So it's not I have a lot to add on top of what Geshe-la said in the morning. So I was thinking of what would be good to do for this session. So I thought I'd probably Kerry is saying DJ Van scratched that Dama hip hop record. All right. So it's not I have a lot of stuff to add on top of what Geshe-la said, but I thought of reviewing a few of the points that we covered in the morning, and maybe try to work it out in a trimmed down logical argument format to see if it can work with us. Jason is asking if I can add him to the recording list. Yes, I can. I'm doing it now. Done. All right. So we started with so today we completed a section that explains the faults of the objects of attachment, a section that we started yesterday. We went on to looking at the disadvantages of Bustle. Is it a word that you use just on its own, Bustle, or hustle and bustle normally? Yeah. Yeah, it sounds a bit awkward, the disadvantages of Bustle. All right.
Oh, no. You can like I'm in for the hustle. I'm in for the hustle.
Hi, Dechen. Just a second. Want to see you. Say it again, Dechen.
I said I'm in for the hustle. You can use hustle on its own. Get in there and hustle.
And what about bustle? They come together. Anyway. Hi, Dechen.
Hello.
All right. That sounds pretty ominous. Hello. It's like big sister is watching you.
I'm just concerned about you getting into a fight with your computer. Oh my gosh.
Well, it's pretty awkward at the moment because there is a mixer connected to my computer, and then your voice is coming out of the audio system. So you're basically projecting your voice at the Gompa and beyond, probably to outer space and beyond.
Now that's scary.
All right. So we started today with verse. Let's look at that again. Verse 21. So we're looking at the fault of the objects of attachment. And this section kind of it's a bit awkward because I think that we approach this section from two different perspectives. One of them is we're first of all looking at how to create conditions which are conducive for a calm abiding meditation to cultivate absorption. So when we contextualize these instructions on how to deal with ridding ourselves of attachment to other people and also attachment to gain and honor, it's all about creating conditions which will be conducive for calm abiding, because if we are less attached to those who are close to our heart, and if we are less affected by praise and honor and so forth, we're likely to have less discursive conceptions that will interrupt our meditation process. So that's in the context of meditating on calm abiding. But still, often when those verses are explained, they're explained in relation to a relationship in general with other people. So sometimes it's difficult to bring those two ways of explaining this verse together. You know, sometimes I think that for us, as we're probably currently not preparing to go into a long calm-abiding retreat in which we are preparing to remain in isolation, sometimes those instructions can be quite confronting in terms of not caring about what other people think about us, or remaining unfamiliar with the world, behaving as if we do not know people, or to remove ourselves, it says, like, from childlike people, don't engage with childlike people. So it's hard to kind of put all the hats on one hand, in thinking that, first of all, those are instructions for those who go on a long-term calm abiding retreat, but I can still use those instructions in order to inform my everyday life. So it's a bit challenging. But anyway, so yeah, it does seem awkward to regard others as childish. So childish here, remember that we said that childish could be explained in two ways, and those two ways are not unrelated. You can also bring them together. So on one hand, you can say that childish in Buddhist terminology is referring to those who have not realized emptiness directly. So not only ourselves in general, but also bodhisattvas who are on the path of accumulation and preparation, they're still called childish because they haven't realized emptiness perceptually. So it's not necessarily a pejorative term. It's just referring to those who haven't reached the path of seeing. That's one way. Another way, which is more relevant to this section, is to refer to those who are greatly affected by anger and attachment. So I think that us in general, including me, we're still affected by anger and attachment. Some of us more by anger, some of us more by attachment, but so long as we are affected greatly by them, we behave like childish sentient beings. As Shantideva points out, we spit the dummy, so to speak, when others criticize us, or when we don't get what we want, when we get what we do not want, and so forth. So a way of reacting is so emotive that it's like a child. So Oli is saying that sometimes it is translated as worldlings. Actually, there's a different word in Tibetan for someone that is a worldly, right? So someone that is a worldly being is called a jiktenpa. Someone that is childish is called a chiba, right? So the two words, or muggles. Yeah, could be. Is muggles from Harry Potter? All right.
Can I make a point?
You have the right to do it.
Well, when they talk about the childish, it seems as though the context that it is being used at, it seems as though it's referring to people who are caught up in worldly affairs, who just follow along with the worldly dharma. Because, yeah, that to me seems to me what it's more looking at.
And certainly it is related to those who are affected by the 8 worldly dhammas, or 8 worldly concerns. So I think that particularly when we look at the next section, which explains how to rid ourselves of attachment to gain and honor, it is directly addressing the 8 worldly concerns. And certainly those who are affected by the 8 worldly concerns are behaving, you can say, like a childish person. I mean, I guess that for most of us, it is the case. It's hard to rid ourselves of the 8 worldly concerns. So it was verse 21. Let's look at that, and we'll also do some readings from the other commentary, because I think that it has a points out pretty nice point. So it says, if there is someone who derides me, what is there for me to be happy about being praised? If there is another who praises me, what is there for me to be unhappy about being derided? So here it says in the Nectar of Manjushri's speech, what reason do we have to feel pleased when people praise us, given that there are always others who criticize us disagreeably and hold us in contempt? So we like to be praised, right? So this is directly related to what you said, Dechen, kind of being affected by the 8 worldly concerns, just to remind ourselves, it's liking gain, disliking no gain. That's the first pair. Liking praise, disliking blame. Liking fame, disliking infamy. And in between, I should have said liking pleasure, disliking pain, right? So long as we behave in a way that is mostly concerned with that, or even slightly tainted by those things, it means that first of all, we're self-centered to a certain degree. What motivates us is the thought of how, what do I get out of it? Or how do I get a better situation, a better deal, greater happiness, get greater reputation, um, better praise, and so forth. But as Shantideva says here, if someone praises you, it's likely that someone else will criticize you. And particularly, um, particularly when we think of how you work your way in a community. Now, so in community, kind of we have the politics of friendships, right? So you have those who are close to your heart, and those that kind of they're not only not that close to your heart, those that you kind of always have an issue with. And I find that when those people are praised, someone that you dislike or someone that you had like a tense relationship with when they're praised and you have to react to that, often it's easy to react to that in the following way. You say that, yeah, that was good, but, and then kind of you complete the sentence. It was, yeah, it was all right, but they're still not kind of doing the job properly, or but they're still kind of the way of going about it is not correct, or but they've done such and such in the past, right? So it is likely that when we are being praised, kind of this is how I think about it. It's likely that when I'm being praised, there's always someone that is saying, yeah, it might be true, but, and they're completing the sentence, right? So, and this is what Shantideva is pointing out here. Don't be so overjoyed by praise, because there will always someone that will say but, and they will fill in the blank. So maybe they will either probably miss out on the but and just kind of bad mouth you completely, or they would say that actually that's probably not the case, because it's not that you have those good qualities, actually you have the opposite of them. So it's a good thing to remember that when you're being praised, there's probably someone that is criticizing you. You might be aware of them, or it is likely that you're not aware of them. And then if there is someone criticizing you, and we take criticism quite badly, don't we? It's even if we don't react to that outwardly, externally, still it's hurtful inside when we're being criticized. So also it's good sometimes to remind ourselves that there will be other people that will praise us. So that's one point that Shantideva makes here, and Geshe-la added another point that is not found in the text, but it's also a really important point. And Geshe Jamang, the previous Geshe I was working with, he used to kind of drill it again and again and again. He says that don't be affected. He used to say, don't be affected by praise and blame, because they don't change who you are. So we live, I think, in a society or environment or culture in which emphasizes being reactive to praise and blame, right? So not only we react to it in a certain situation, it's also been encouraged to to sing accolades and to sing praises to people, to make a big deal, to make a big fuss out of certain situations. So Geshe used to say, well, think about what is being stated. If it is true, still doesn't change who you are. You just acknowledge that it is true and just move on. You don't have to feel completely excited about it if it's true. And if it's also untrue, it's actually quite embarrassing. So suppose that someone is praising you for something that is totally exaggerated. We tend to actually like it, but it also comes with a sense of discomfort. So I think that probably all of us have our own personal experiences with that. But being, for example, being here the translator or translating in other places, most people don't understand Tibetan, so they think that if I speak fluently, And if the presentation is tied together, then I'm doing a good job. But I know for myself the points that I'm missing or the points that I'm not getting it right or precisely. So often, people say that you've done a fantastic job, and I think to myself, actually, I did a shit job. I wasn't that good, or it was pretty kind of, I just made it by the skin on my teeth. So if someone is criticizing, if someone is praising you, there's no reason to be overjoyed if actually you know your own value. Also, if someone is criticizing you, it doesn't change who you are. I mean, let's say that they're pointing out the fault in you, then if you don't have that fault, what's the purpose of being upset about it? They telling you that you've taken something, you've done something, you've said something. If you haven't done those things, if you're not responsible for a certain situation, why are you getting upset? It doesn't change who you are. But if what is said is true about you, if you do have that fault, why are you upset about it? Someone has just pointed out the truth to you. I mean, it's easier said than done, isn't it? It's easier. It's easy to say, don't react, take it easy. Why you're being upset about it? We're so used to being reactive to those situations, to feel defensive about a certain thing, and to pretend as if everything is hunky-dory about us and whatever we do, even if we know deeply that it is not necessarily the case. So this is a really practical advice if you think about it from the point of view of your Dharma practice. So to develop a more balanced mind, which is less reactive to this external stimuli, that is involved with the eight worldly concern, liking praise, disliking blame, then think about who you are. It doesn't change who you are. It doesn't add to who you are, and it doesn't take away from who you are. But also at the same time, suppose that from a Dharma perspective, you are behaving in a way that is positive. You are making an improvement. You are practicing good ethical discipline. So if someone points it out to you, it's still good to kind of sometimes recognize that you're going in a good direction, rather than thinking that, oh, this is certainly not the case, I'm not doing it right, and blah, 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 or not get encouraged about it. Actually, you can get encouraged about things which are positive, not to feel proud about it, but just to find, I guess, encouragement that you're moving in the right direction. So Kate says, society based on praise and blame is debilitating. From childhood, imprints are reinforced. Yeah, I mean, this is the way that it works in society, but often when we look at a Dharma practice, we want to break through those cultural constructs and to train our mind in thinking in a way that is more in line with reality. So we are conditioned by by a parent, society, school system, education system, friends, and so forth from young age, and also definitely from previous lives. But when we train our mind, we want to go beyond that, not to just go with the flow of those conditionings, but really to look deeply and look at whether things are in line with reality. So that's one thing. And another thing is that we still, in some sense, want to behave in a way that is moderate and not to be too strange. If you start to behave strangely, if you kind of become a bit like an odd person all of a sudden, others will find it difficult to relate to you, and you might find it difficult to relate to others. So you can, in your mind, make that mental note that it doesn't change who I am. It's not a big deal, but we don't have to physically make a big deal out of that. It's just a mental note. So that's one thing, but also I think that another thing that is good to add to that is that it doesn't mean that we then should abstain from praising others, right? So here Shantideva points out how you deal with receiving praise. Don't become proud. Don't feel happy about things that actually are not true or things that do not change who you are. But at the same time, we also say that Um, Rather than digging out the faults of others, you should praise them. You should point out their good qualities. So if you think that I don't want to do it because they become proud, or I don't want to do it because it doesn't change who they are, it doesn't really work in those cases, right? So when Shantideva gives some instructions here, those are personal instructions for us as we take it into dealing with the own mind. But still, it's a good, in general, it's a good advice to point out the good qualities of others, because first of all, you can say that it encourages them, but also it encourages us. You know, if you point out a good quality of someone, and it is a good quality, you're not just putting up a show or praising someone because that's the social standard to praise someone. If you really mean it, then it's also, you find it encouraging because that praise is something that is more heartfelt. So um, I think that again, sometimes we don't have to over intellectualize our behavior. Just kind of, you know, if it's a good quality of someone, just be, you can kind of praise it or make a statement without kind of going too intellectual about it. Um, just kind of be normal rather than be kind of overly strict about it. So that's this point. And then we go into the disadvantages of hustle and bustle. That's the third point. What was the first 2 points were um, identifying the object, the antidote to attachment, and then the method for developing the antidotes to attachment, and then the disadvantages of the bustle, which means that the disadvantages of still remaining with the hustle and bustle of the world, which means with attachment, you can say, well, not applying the antidote, the disadvantages of remaining in that state. So here it's becoming, I think, more challenging, because here I think that we need to contextualize the instructions that Shantideva gives. As it is difficult to keep company with childlike people, do not be attached to their preoccupations and diversions. So let's first of all read through those 2 verses and then look at points of thinking. So if even the victor is unable to please the beings of various inclinations, then what need to mention about a negative person such as I? Therefore, I should give up worldly thought. They're the right sentient beings who have no possessions and say bad things about those who do. How will they, who are by nature difficult to get along with, produce happiness? So these 2 verses here are found in a section of saying that ordinary or childish like sentient beings are unreliable. It's hard to please them. It is difficult to keep company with childlike people. Do not be attached. Sorry, it is difficult as it is difficult to keep company with childlike people. Don't be attached to their preoccupations and diversions. So we're looking at how we create a state of mind that will make it easier for us to go into retreat, to do a calm abiding practice. So Shantideva says here that when you think of what would happen if you do not reduce your sense of attachment, and your mind is still remains preoccupied with the hustle and bustle of the world, and then your mind becomes very reactive still to situations and people around you, it will still be very disturbing to your mind in terms of that meditation of calm abiding. And also you need to think about it in terms of the futility in trying to keep everyone happy. So you're not going to be able to make everyone happy, as the verse says. Even the Buddha was not able to do it. So when it says in verse 22, what need to mention about a negative person such as I, then a negative person, I think here is understood in a particular way. A negative person would be a person that is still subject to anger and attachment, rather than thinking that I'm an inherently bad person or an evil person, a wicked person. I'm so stupid. I'm so proud and so forth. I think that it's contrasting ourselves with the Buddha in general. So the Buddha, someone that has removed all faults, has developed all perfect quality to the mind, even they were not able to make everyone's happy. So there are quite a lot of stories taken from the lifetime of the Buddha, which describe how the Buddha was not able to make everyone happy. I think that one of the most famous, you can say, story or stream of tales is about his cousin Devadatta that was always fighting and quarreling with the Buddha or competing with the Buddha. So um, it was very familiar with the Buddha. It was his cousin, and still wasn't able to see his good qualities and was competing with him all the time, and even I think at some point conspiring to kill him. So um, so in that sense, if the Buddha was not able to please everyone, how would we be able to please everyone? So Deshin is asking, how is negative different to childish? I think that just look at hmm, yeah. Well, I think that probably kind of here negative. Um, I think that probably is similar to childish in the sense that it's just Shantideva chose another word. Yeah, maybe. So could you say it again, please? All the bit, because I kind of hmm, yeah, yeah. You can have different degrees of that. Yeah. There was another question here. Is it beneficial to judicially accept some kind of praise because it gives the person the gift of authentic generosity? Yeah, I think that kind of when someone is praising you, you don't have to, I think, make a big deal of fast, I don't deserve it or don't say that and so forth. You can still, I think, um, accept it, but still, if mentally, if inwardly, kind of you have a good assessment of yourself and you think that actually they're praising me, but I'm not sure that I have all those good qualities, and you can think, um, actually, I need to live up to that standard. I need to improve myself. I need to do better. I need to be more patient. I need to be more generous so that I will fulfill or will live up to whatever other people say about me. I mean, it's quite funny because I think that sometimes, particularly wearing the robes and going around, people have that expectation that your mind will be um, totally pure, or even if it's not totally pure, that you'll be kind of really peaceful and calm and blah and so on and so forth. And sometimes, um, and I remember kind of going into a shop and someone is kind of the people at the checkout, the person at the checkout said that everyone was so happy that I walked into that shop because they have such a serene and peaceful vibe about me. And I thought, what are you talking about? I'm just normal. Yeah. So, I think that kind of, if someone does, I think, state that, you can think that actually, maybe I should behave like that. Maybe I should work harder, to embody what people expect me to do or to be. Did you want to say something, Chuck? Okay. So, yeah, my voice is very clear, but we cannot hear the discussion from the Gompa people. Okay, I'll try to repeat that. Thanks, Avis. Yes. All right. Let's look at the commentary. This in this book. So it says, it could perhaps be argued that we ought to try to please everyone and make them happy. As a result, absolutely no one will blame us. Everyone will praise us. But beings have accumulated various karmas, and consequently, they have various aspirations and interests, which means that they are of different dispositions. Not even the perfect Buddha, free as he was from every defect and endowed with every excellence, was able to please everyone. He felt to satisfy uh, Paradajat, whoever that person was, and the Brahmin's daughter Gochali, the six non-Buddhist teachers, as well as Devadatta and Sunakshatra. This being so, it is hardly necessary to point out that pitiable creatures like ourselves will be powerless to please everyone. Maybe pitiable is better than negative person like us, right? So pitiable, or those who are still under the influence, the control of pitiful states of mind. Therefore, we should give up any desire to be on pleasant terms with the world. We should abandon our fixation on the eight worldly concerns and our desire for the company of childish beings. We should leave human companionship behind and remain in solitude. So this is what I meant in saying that we have to contextualize those sets of instructions, right? So those sets of instructions, this is for those who gone the cultivation of calm abiding retreat or calm abiding practice, or any other type of practice that requires you to stay in seclusion, to do a retreat, to limit your encounters with others so that your mind would be better prepared for that retreat. So I think that for us in general, when we function in society or in communities or in Dharma centers and so forth, if we say we should give up even any desire to be on pleasant terms with the world, we should abandon our fixation on the eight worldly concerns and our desire to be for the company of childish beings. We should leave humans' companionship behind and remain in solitude. It's probably not the right context, right? So in some sense, we still want to, you can say in general, when we're not in retreat, when we go about and do our thing, like for example, here in the center, we want to still be of benefit to others. Sometimes you have to talk to others to be able to be of benefit to them. If you think that I'm not going to be able, I don't want to talk to anyone around me because they're just childish. I don't want to talk to them because they are pitiable sentient beings who are subject to anger and attachment. And this is what Shantideva says here. I think that it's probably not the right context for, it's not the right understanding of what he says here. Not to be, don't have patents back in the 1600s where the robes were designed. Yeah. Oh yeah, maybe we should all wear maroon robes. Well, if you want to be totally awkward, just go for it.
Can I say something?
Yes, don't hold back.
I mean, there's no way that I would call any of my fellow ordained people childish. You know, I just think I'm being, and unless I consider myself childish, which I guess to some degree we all would, you know, consider us childish, but I would assume that we are all trying to rise beyond the eight worldly dharmas. I mean, for me, childish really is more relevant for me by defining that it's those people who are more concerned about worldly dharmas. And I would assume that, you know, most people who are doing the BSP, I wouldn't be calling them childish. I just don't think it's an appropriate term for any of us.
Well, that's why kind of an explanation of the word childish was given before. So of course, we have the understanding of the word childish in our everyday conversational language. So childish is someone who either spits the dummy, that behave like, you know, like a spoiled brat, that just I think that behaves in a childish way. But here the meaning of the word childish is different. So I wouldn't call any one of my Dharma friends childish because in normal conversation, Childish means someone who throws a tantrum, spits the dummy, behaves in a childish way. So of course, it's not the right way to call them, but here, the meaning of childish is different. The meaning of childish is someone that is subject to anger, attachment, and so forth. So in that sense, I'm childish.
You are not.
Yeah,
I have never, I've never seen you angry, Carson. Never.
well, I'll come back and I'll just throw a tantrum.
You will not.
Well, I had my glory days. You know, you can ask some of the people. I'll point you out to people that were once upon a time object of my wrath. You can ask them, and they will definitely vouch for me throwing a tanty. Anyway, then it says, the next verse says, the poor and weak who have nothing. Actually, that's quite a nice explanation that is given in this text. The poor and weak who have nothing are usually an object of contempt. People regard them as miserable and without merit, unable even to make their living as servants. By contrast, although it would be consistent for such people to praise the rich, they do not do so. Instead, they criticize the wealthy who are fortunate and have lots of attendants, and they say unpleasant things to them, asking sarcastically questions about whether they will be able to take their possessions with them to the next lives, or whether they will try to bribe the Lord of Death with them, and wondering what they will do with all that they have. I mean, it's quite kind of, I think that it's quite interesting way to explain that, because it's obviously an explanation that is given from a Buddhist, kind of hardcore Buddhist perspective. You know, we don't normally speak sarcastically to friends that are doing well off, in thinking, in asking them whether they're going to take all their possessions to the next life upon death, and what they're going to do with that, and so forth. So you know, it's kind of, this explanation is very nice, but it's also very contextualized. All right. So, all right. Yeah. So Ruby was wondering whether, when Shantideva is using the word childish, it is used in a cultural context. Now, in that point in time, in his culture, Indian culture, I think the 7th century or 8th century. I mean, I think it was an 8th century scholar, 7th or 8th century scholar, which is quite interesting. Hmm. Yeah. 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 Like a child. I mean, I think that probably we're trying to read too much into the word childish. I think that's, you know, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it has double meaning, but here, kind of particularly in the commentary, it says that here in this context, childish just refers to those who either don't have a realization of emptiness, or those who are affected. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, kind of stand and think about it yourself, think that, no, that was a childish thing to do, or that was a mistake, and so forth. Is there a microphone for people talking in the Gompa? Not yet. Maybe there will be one in the future. I mean, currently we have only one headset. So tomorrow, if there's rain in the morning and we're going to use that, because I think that people had problems today hearing me at the back, we have only one headset. So probably Geshe-la's voice is not going to be very strong if he doesn't have a headset, but at least people here would be able to hear me better. So it's difficult to keep company with childlike people. So again, this instruction is for reducing a sense of attachment to the hustle and bustle of the world and thinking that actually you're not going to be able to make everyone's happy. So don't be so obsessed with that or caught up with that. If you are going to go into a retreat, it's a way of reminding yourself of the disadvantages of remaining in an environment which is not suitable for accommodating retreat. But still, I think that in general, we can also use that set of instruction in order to remind ourselves that you're trying to do good, but you're not going to make everyone's happy. We want to make everyone happy. We want to make everyone like us. But Shantideva points out here, it's not possible. There will always be someone that will, it is likely that there will always be someone that is not happy with what you're doing. I mean, particularly, I think in challenging circumstances, I think that when you look at our situation here at the center, or when you look at, back home in Israel, when you look at the kibbutz system, which is a system that should be like a socialist system where everyone is supportive of each other and people kind of work and are supported according to the needs and so forth. It works well when everyone thrives. When things are getting a bit tight and you have less money, less resources, you're more stretched, people are kind of at each other's throats. So it also happens here, right? So, or at any other center as well, or other communities. When things go well, when the communities have easy relationship, when the situation is quite, relatively speaking, good, it's easy to be nice to each other. When things become tight, then the knives are out usually. So, this is the time particularly to remember that if there's someone that is praising you, there will be someone that will be blaming you. There's someone that is blaming you, there's someone that will be praising you. And then it's not possible to make everyone happy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, and you mentioned also behaving in a childish way, that a mind behaves in a childish way. Because I remember being in, I've done a few group retreats, and sometimes the mind becomes um, so petty. Kind of, you've already cut some of the external hustle and bustle that you have. So whatever you have internally becomes magnified. So, people get upset about things, including me, get upset about things which are so minute. Like, for example, I remember someone commenting that um, the way that someone was moving the malabis was too noisy. Even that becomes something that is unbearable. Or, you know, there was one retreat in which kind of the dedications were just going on and on and on every day. And then um, I think that it was around the time that Michael Jackson suddenly passed away. And then Michael Jackson was added on to the dedication list. And it's just kind of thought myself, what's the point in saying that all those dedication lists, and also for someone that actually had quite a shady background. Anyway, those things suddenly become kind of pretty magnify in the mind, and you become really upset about it. It's like, there's like the external interference is not there. So internally, you still kind of, all those conceptions make your mind go crazy, like a childish person. Yeah. All right. Let's just cover the last verse that we've covered today, which was verse 24. stating the proof for that. I think that we already had so many proofs for saying that it is difficult to keep company with childlike people, but still let's look at verse 24. It has been said by the Tathagatas, never befriend the childish, because without the welfare, the childish ones will not be happy. I mean, again, we have to contextualize it. Never befriend with the childish has to be understood as never, I think, never rely upon the childish and expect them to make you happy. I think that probably that's the message here. I mean, don't have the expectations that others will make you happy, or that if you do something for their sake, it will necessarily make them happy, because childish people, again, here, childish is understood in a particular way. There are those who are mainly concerned about their own welfare. So what about us? Are we kind of mainly concerned about our own welfare? Well, we like to be noble, don't we? We like to kind of to think that we're mainly concerned about the welfare of others, or highly concerned about the welfare of others. I think that still, when we look at many different situations in our life, we can see how we first of all concerned about our own welfare, what we want, what we need, what we think, our happiness, our resources, our comfort, and so forth. So to never befriend the childish here means, I think, don't expect those who are concerned mainly for their own welfare always to be happy, right? Don't have those expectations. So let's look at the commentary. This commentary, actually, it's in front of me. What is the reason for avoiding the company of childish beings? Unless they have their way in everything, they are not happy. They are unwilling to give even food and drink to others unless it is their own interest, whether now or in the future. Shantideva advises us to stay away from making friends with such people who are interested solely in their own advantage. This indeed is what the Tathagata has said, as we find in the text entitled Engaging in the Objects of all the Tathagatas. So it says, no joy will come to you from company with savage beasts. That's actually quite strong. So no joy will come to you from company with savage beasts. Likewise, in the company of childish beings, no happiness will come to you. So the conclusion is that we are savage beasts. And then it says, similarly, it is written in another sutra, however long you dance attendance on the childish, you will get no friendship in return. They will think ill of you. Once they grasp the nature of such childish folk, the wise and prudent shun their company. There are many other quotations on this to the same effect. So again, I think that here it requires some thinking and contextualizing, because still in society, particularly Buddhist community, we still want to be of benefit to others. When we think of our teachers, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, His Holiness Dalai Lama, many other teachers, actually sometimes they particularly address those who have a difficult way of thinking, trying to kind of try to pull them out of this narrow way of thinking. So here when it says, don't keep the company of those people who only think about themselves with this limited state of mind, we see actually that in the behavior of Alamas, it is quite different. They actually embrace those people in order to try to bring about a shift. So when there is a time for us to do it, when there is the right context for us to do it, we can do it if we have the ability to do it. But again, when we contextualize this instruction here, when you're setting off to do a retreat, a accommodating retreat, if you expect, if you have attachment to others, or kind of you have attachment to gain and honor, you want to be respected by others, you want to be valued by others, you want others to tell you all the time how well you're doing. Here it says, stop doing that, because those who think about themselves will always find ways of thinking about themselves. So you'll not get what you want, which is that praise and respect and saying thank you and so forth. Any questions? Like, for example, Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, definitely, you want to be able to kind of recognize your own, your own achievements, your own good qualities, and then to inspire yourself to do more, to do better. Um, well, it's a um, the problem is the eight worldly concerns. And it's like the problem is that if our motivation is heavily influenced by wanting to be praised or disliking when we're being blamed, and then whatever we do is oriented towards that. So for example, rather than thinking that I want to be of benefit to others so that I'll be able to, because first of all it's a virtuous thing to do, but also on that basis I'll be able to um, develop a stronger bodhicitta, and therefore in the future to become a Buddha, to be of benefit to others. Rather than thinking about it like that, then you think that I want to be um, I want to be praised, I want to be liked by others because it makes me feel good, and also others will respect me so that I get more benefit, more profit, and so forth. So this way of thinking is called the eight worldly concerns. Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm wondering, first of all, before I answer, if people at home have had this question. No, no.
Didn't hear.
All right. So I think that the question, I'll try to summarize that. The question is, if suppose that you have a certain goal that you want to accomplish, like for example, you have a certain work that you do, you want to make more money, be more successful, so that you can, for example, sponsor a statue or accomplish a particular thing. Yeah, yeah. As a householder, you want to take responsibility for a certain thing. Is that an okay thing to do? I think that so is it. So I think that in working in this way, I think that from um, let me think about it. I think that first of all, in your interactions with others, you want to make sure that your motivation still always stays a positive motivation, a virtuous motivation. So you want to find ways to motivate people to help you out, so that you yourself will be successful. So in order to do that, you might at some point praise others, you might motivate others, or at points in which they criticize you, you need to find ways to, rather than becoming upset and kind of and offended, to take it on and try to change the situation so that you yourself will continue to work in this way. So yeah, yeah, don't take things to heart, don't stay positive, don't let other people bring you down, don't let difficulties, adverse conditions bring you down. Definitely hands on. Yeah, yeah, definitely agree with you. And I mean, it's easier said than done, but I think that that's probably the summation of all the practices that we're trying to do. The summation, I think that all the practices that we're trying to do is try as much as possible to be of benefit to others. And when you've encountered adverse conditions, you try to use those adverse conditions as something that will enrich your practice, that will make your practice go stronger and stronger, rather than succumbing to all the adverse conditions. So in that sense, I think that whatever you said is the summary of all our practices. You know, try to work with difficulties and not only be able to deal with them, but also turn them to something that makes your practice stronger. All right. So let's finish it up for today with the dedication. Due to this virtue, may I quickly become a Guru Buddha and lead all transmigratory beings without exception to that state. May the precious Supreme Bodhicitta not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. In this land encircled by snowy mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. You uphold the subduer's moral way, yourselves an bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplishes magnificent prayers, honoring the three jewels, partook of myself and others, your disciples. Please live long. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. There you go. Actually, Geshe-la covered just a few verses today, and I thought that I don't have enough material to work with today. Probably in half an hour, I'll finish everything that I'll have to say, and it's like 4. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.